So it's been 7 months almost since last time we spoke, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Why did you want to talk to me again?
Well, we were gearing up for the trial, and we were getting everything in order, and all of the evidence, and the 995 that came up the trombetta about the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty much very substantial and profound that even the other judge in the civil case has, deemed it spoliation of evidence, and that had to be recollected from the muddy field, and So if you think about it, just going with that in mind, they arrested me 6 months after they had destroyed the evidence and thrown it in the muddy field, and people have gone through it, and even where they had it in storage in Omar's auto shop, people broke in there and stole the transformer that was like very highly suspect, or that I think the fire started from, and then it was returned after a warrant was issued to the NG family. So we were like getting ready for this final motion with the judge that was going to be our trial judge. So we were going to go into trial with at least the judge having the knowledge that we were treated unfairly, and we, like, how can I really defend myself if so much evidence has been lost and destroyed? But I'm still willing to, and the whole, so why did I want to talk to you? I wanted to talk about all this stuff, but now it's like, there was a moment 2 weeks ago where, I think it's David Lim, where we were talking about scheduling. I think you were there. We were scheduling the trial. And he asked, the judge and him were speaking about like making time for he had to have the exact dates for the families to come out and be able to have time to organize their flights and their hotels. And at that point, I finally getting to the point where all these families were going to come and like mourn together every day. It's like, there's got to be another way. Like, what do you guys want from me? Like, what can I give you guys? And I wrote you a letter. It was exactly about it. It was right on time with that. Like, what can I give you guys so that we can just make this easier for everybody, for my children, for their families, for their other children, for their friends, like to bring this up every day over and over, and then the evidence to like prove beyond reasonable doubt that I'm guilty. Like, I'm not even, I know that I'm not like the big dog in this. It's not all about me. There's so many other factors. And so in order to defend myself, I would have to point my finger around and make other firemen and police officers that we're doing great jobs, that we're like our friends, all of a sudden make them guilty now because they allowed us to be somewhere. And it just became like a horrible situation, like finally realizing it's coming down, I didn't.
So you were saying you wanted to give something to those families. So what did you decide?
Oh, I wanted to give closure. But it's interesting because there was nothing that was said. The only person I've actually mentioned anything to was you. I wrote you that letter saying, look, I'm already in here. Trial's going to take this much more time. It could go on for another year. That's already, and in the cell that I'm in, like, I get no sunlight. The food is horrible. I don't get to run, or I don't get to touch my children. Like, that's why they count every day in there for 2 days. It should be 5 days or more, but I have the onset of like diabetes from the diet. I'm not doing well. I'm depressed. I'm on psych meds. Like, I'm not doing well. And so I started just kind of coming to terms with like reality and like what I could offer them. And I don't have anybody to write. I don't have the parents. Like, I'm not in touch with them. Like, I've actually tried to call the DA a few times. I have his number, but they don't accept collect calls. And like, I've gone against all of my lawyers' recommendations and reached out to the public, reached out to the news media. I've sent you a lot of letters, right?
Yeah.
And in that letter, I kind of just, I was just honest about it. And it was the synchronicity of it. I'm sorry if I'm being redundant right now. I'll try and say what I'm trying to say. I wanted to offer myself up some level of responsibility but I didn't have anybody to do it with, to share that with, except you, because I know that you are a direct connection to the world. So by writing you that letter and admitting, like, okay, you know what, I'm involved in this and I'm willing to be responsible, and here's what I think I should get. It just turns out that the next time I went to court, they offered me basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a synergy of consciousness. We're like, okay, we're all ready to come to terms with this, and we don't have to. Everybody's like, got all their guards up and all their hands together and all their armaments, but we really don't have to fight. It's just like a big show at that point. Like, we can really just be honest with each other, because otherwise we're just going to torture each other. To what end?
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say you're ready to take responsibility and believe that you should get something for that, what do you think you deserve?
That's what this little piece of paper is all about. It's something I wrote, but I don't want to. I'm really defending myself in this, and I have to be careful right now, because I want to go home, and I'm afraid now at this point. I'm afraid that it's gotten to the point where I could defend myself, and I could win this trial. I don't think anybody's going to win this trial. It's already a tragedy. It's all just about the city protecting and covering itself, saving millions of dollars in lawsuits. If they pin this on me, everyone's happy. That's strange to me. There's no way. It's impossible that I'm completely responsible. But on the other end, the first accounts in the newspaper were like, 119 years? And then it went down to like 39 years or something. And it stayed around like 36 years for like 8 months so they were basically, I've been tortured for the past year in a small cell, taken away from my family, no touch, no affection, no love, and then afraid, constantly afraid. And I don't have money, look, my attorney's 85 years old. I've had to do all the homework. I've had to go through 14,000 pages of people's opinions about me and scientific, whatever happened that day. And all I know is that I tried to build something that was beautiful, and people sought it out, and we built it together, because I'm just doing that same thing I did last time. I'm sorry.
No worries. Well, let's circle back to where we were talking about. I mean, do you think you deserve some jail time?
Like I said the first time, if you put me up here with the NG family, and we could reveal all of their faults and all of their totally illegal electrical work and things that were done and changed, and we bring in scientific data, and they're going to be found guilty. But for some reason, they weren't even looked at, and it's been too long now. Now there's too much separation between us being equal in guilt. They've obviously gotten paid, they're out of the deal, and it's just on me and Max. Everything's on me and Max. So oh man, I'm sorry.
I understand that this case, your case, could settle in a couple of days. There could be some sort of agreement reached that could result in you being locked up longer. How do you feel about that?
I've gone through an entire year feeling like I'm never coming home. What I've been trying to explain is, to me it's obvious what happened, but why isn't it obvious to the rest of the world? So, you lose your fight after a while, and you start just coming to terms with reality, and I'm surrounded by that reality. Everyone's innocent in there. And I know that I built the place, and I know that we lived there, and I know that we threw events, and I know that rather than the police and the fire coming in and looking at what we did and shutting us down and saying this is horrible, they said it was great. But there was no paperwork. We didn't go into the city. We didn't sign off on what we were planning on doing. That we didn't have an inspector come in, and it was just really completely creative. And I'm realizing that was a fault at this point. I don't have anything to fall back on. So my only chance of getting out of here is to blame everybody else. And I can do that because they're at fault as well. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to ruin any lives of any firemen, any police, any CPS workers, because they gave me back my children. They came and they said it was safe. They were like, "This is amazing. Here are your kids back." CPS supersedes local police standards of safety. Whenever they have an issue with children, they call the police, and the police have to do an inspection. That happened many times, and they're looking for all of these, situations, fire and, just filth and danger, and so yeah, it's horrible to say. It's just like easier if they just take me. It's like just take me, and I'll do the best. I'm an older man already. I've been married for 20 years. I love my children. It's the 7 and the 8-year-old that breaks my heart that they're going to miss me for a few years. They need me right now. There's a lot of things they can't do. They can't go, on field trips, or they can't have like sports activities because they don't have a father to take them because Mike is working now full time. She comes home exhausted, So they're like kind of like latchkey kids now, Like they go to school, then they stay after school till 6 o'clock. Then Micah comes and picks them up for an hour, makes them dinner, puts them to bed. That's my kid's life. They don't have a father right now. And I was the bridge to all these other activities and all this fun, So, but then I, think about all the families that lost their kids, and and I think how idiotic this sounds, I'm complaining,
So you're willing to do some time in jail in exchange for putting this to bed?
Yeah, but I'm willing to do some time to satiate the families that have their souls to the ears of the DA and the mayor, Like there's a reaction. Like if nobody wanted blood, then this might have, if all those people were unloved vagabonds, but they weren't. They were beautiful. They were beautiful, progressive young people, and so yeah, it's never going to be balanced. Never. Like the parents would probably rather me be put away forever, and
A trial would be pretty traumatic for everybody.
Yeah, a trial would be horrible. But it would be the only way that everybody would get to know what really happened that night. So that's the only thing that gets me right now is like I'm willing to go in and just kind of like end this like we're talking about right now. It's like just some closure and some peace, and the families feel like they something happened because they want justice, right? But what do I do with all of the information that I've gathered, with all of the truth that I know? Does it just go to cease to exist? Do I basically go down forever as being this guy?
Well, earlier you were talking about there are things that you want to take responsibility for. You were saying you knew that you had people living there, that you built the space. There are things that you understand come back to you. What else specifically, do you want to say, that was on me?
Specifically, we're compacting like 3 years into like one moment, and I wasn't even there that night, like the real justice that could come out of this, and that should have come out of this, was that I was there that night, and because of that, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead, and then I wouldn't be looked at as a villain. I maybe would have been looked at as somebody like a hero that was trying to like save his friends, you know.
Do you look back at specific things and say, now, I could have done that differently?
Not when I see 11,000 acres burning. Not when I understand what fire does once it starts, you know, like, yes, I would have liked to have politically and legally protected myself by having implemented all of these, you know, standardized safety precautions, right? But what if there was still a fire and people died? So then I'd be guilty for creating a situation that attracted people, you know, and whether I would be legally responsible, like I would still feel responsible. Like I feel responsible. I feel like I created something and people died in my home. You know, it's horrible, and I have to live with this the rest of my life. And this is like my children's legacy and Micah's legacy, and like, I'm never gonna get out from under this. You know, so there isn't, like, I'd like to answer the question, but there's not one thing that I could change. It's like an accumulation of like, oh, if I wouldn't have met this guy that wanted to redo his loft in this way, or if we wouldn't have met these musicians that wanted to have the event that night, like, you know, like it just comes down to that. Like, did it happen because there was an event, or was this going to happen anyways?
Mm-hmm. When you think about possibly taking a deal and possibly serving jail time, what do you think is fair? Like, how much time do you think would be enough?
Well, let's put it this way. From the very beginning, I knew that we needed an emergency door and another set of stairs, and the landlords were there at the meeting with other people where we talked about these things, and we asked them to pay for these additions or renovations, and they were like, no, it's fine the way it is. They rented as a dry goods warehouse. I thought I rented a public gathering space. That's what it says in the lease, that I rented a space for public gathering. Mm-hmm. Well, according to that, I needed to have other exits and stairs, and so I put those in myself, right? I did the best I could with the money that I had and the resources that I had. We did have everything. We did have the extra staircase that people were able to, you know, and the fire captain Freeman even said, no, it was sturdy, it was strong, it was built well. It was unconventional, but it was built very well. He said that at the prelim when David Lim asked him, oh, did you go up the stairs to the second floor, and did you use the rickety staircase? He was like, it wasn't rickety at all, it was fine. And that was the original, like, that where they were going to get me. I built something that trapped people, was falling apart. It was lasting standing, you know, we talked about that. So here I am, I'm a citizen, I'm an artist, I'm a father, I'm a friend, and I've got a space, and I'm trying to renovate it in the best way possible to make it safe, because we know we're going to have people there, and this happens. And you're asking me now, what do I think is fair to be charged with? Well, you have an officer, you have a police officer that's been trained and sworn to uphold peace and justice, and he's been given a firearm, right? And he's been trained how to use that. And he shoots a kid in the back, kills him while the kid's handcuffed and pinned down and lying on his belly, kills him, murders him. That's murder. But he gets charged involuntary manslaughter. And he gets 10 months. The first deal, I can tell you the first deal that they gave me, like 2 weeks ago, was 18 years. Like, they gave me 18 years. That was my first deal, 18 years. I didn't hold anybody down. I didn't put a bullet in anybody. You know? Like, Oscar Grant was screaming for his life. He wanted to live, and he was murdered, and that officer got 10 months involuntary manslaughter. So what I think is fair is, I think, sure, charge me with one intolerant, what is the term again? Not consecutive, but concurrent. Mm-hmm. One concurrent involuntary manslaughter. At the max, it carries 6 years. But they don't even want to give me that. They want to give me more.
You would be willing to do 6 years in jail?
Well, I don't have a choice at this point. you know? And to think that if, I'll call it righteous insanity, okay? And you're entitled to that if your children are murdered or die, right? You're entitled to your feelings, you're entitled for the justice that you want. I mean, in ancient days, it would be stones, and it would just be the village that takes you out. Now there's all these laws, and like the village is like checked for guns and knives at the door. To sit through months of parents looking at the burnt remains of their children and like, it's not even worth it. Like, it's not what that's going to do to their psyche and to the world. What that sadness is going to reverberate through this entire, through the universe and create just more suffering. Like, I can't be a part of that anymore. It didn't go the right way. I should have been able to talk to the families the very first moment, you know? But Libby Shaft called us degenerates and criminals, and she lied, and she said, oh, we've never been in there, and they were totally under the radar, and like, and then when it all came to bite her back, and as misdirection, as misinformation, then she hires a publicist and pays them $90,000 to continue spinning these lies about us, so that she can get some like space and like see what's really going on, and then realize, oh my God, CPS has been in there, and like we've been in there, and Derick even called the police one time on an event that turned out to be bigger than he wanted it to be, and he had the cops come and shut it down himself. Like, so this is all, we're going to bring this all up, you know? And so I've been trying to do it this way with the camera and with the letters I've written to you and to other people in the media, like, and trying to get them to share the story, to try and like get the parents to ask other questions. Now, if the parents are willing to like listen to me and listen to Micah and listen to other people that were there and involved, then they might be saying, hey, wait a minute, it's not about Derick entirely. Yes, he is responsible this much. And then who is responsible this much? You see? Mm-hmm. But I'm taking it all on. I know that if I take a deal, then it ends. Then nobody's going to be, you know, to blame after me. It's going to go down in the history books and Wikipedia like it's Derick Ion started this fire, found guilty, whatever. I don't care. My life's over. Like, I'm never going to get a job. No one's going to hire me. You know? Like, what am I going to do?